Welcome back. Time is 3:29. You with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, almost one-third of the properties expected to be hit by Rachel Reeves' so-called £600,000 mansion tax are flats. Now, around 100,000 apartments are likely to face this new surcharge, which would push council tax bills to over £6,000 per property. Well, let's now speak with the property expert and Reform UK councillor, Russell Quirk. Russell, always a pleasure to have your company. We knew they'd come for mansions, but the thing is, a mansion is classified as £1.5 million. Now, that could be a huge amount of flats in places like London, and they might be occupied by people who aren't actually that well off, but they've lived there for a long time. Is this tax unfair?
So, yeah, look, milkshakes and mansions, whatever next day. Rachel Reeves is surely going to run out of things to actually tax. Maybe, I don't know, she'll turn to taxing the very air that we breathe in the not too distant future. Look, this is flawed on a number of different levels, of course. I mean, yes, as you rightly point out, in London and the South East, lots and lots of properties have a value above £1.5 million. It doesn't mean that they're lived in by millionaires. And in fact, a lot of those properties, Martin, of course, will be lived in by, you know, widowers, divorcees, and so on, that perhaps don't have the income to pay that extra amount of money that Rachel Reeves is going to levy. So it does seem desperately unfair. I mean, there doesn't also seem to be a logical link to me between the services that someone in that kind of property would use and utilise by way of council services and the value of their home. Now, of course, we can remember back to the early 1990s and that ill-fated poll tax, but surely we should be having a debate on the fact that if you are a family that has lots and lots of people in a household and therefore using more and more council services, whatever those council services might be, more rubbish, you know, more likely to therefore obviously consume things that relate to roads, highways, police services and so on. Surely we should be looking again at a way of funding local government based on a kind of per capita basis rather than penalising particularly people in the South East based on just the value of their homes. And just, sorry, I know I'm ranting as I usually do, mate, but the other thing, of course, is perhaps some of us wouldn't mind so much paying large amounts of tax either to government or local authorities if we thought it was going to be well spent. Now, given that about 40% of everything that gets spent in local authorities goes on council officer wages and pensions rather than having the rubbish picked up properly on a Monday morning, I mean, you can forgive people for being rather miffed about this latest assault on the so-called wealthy.
Yeah, and Russell Quirk, later in the show, we're doing a story about many of these London boroughs. You've now got to put your own road grit down in the winter because there's no staff to put it down. So you're going to get charged all this extra wonga and still have to do your own de-salting, de-icing of the roads. I digress. The point of this, though, the spirit of human kindness runs deep. Because don't worry, Rachel Reeves said if you can't afford to pay it in your lifetime, you can pay it when you die. So if you live for 10 years, you could pay £60,000 to the Chancellor when you croak. Thank you very much.
So it becomes, in effect, a deferred death tax. I mean, look, that's surely not a headline that any government would want to see, is it? That, you know, and it's all very well saying it's deferred. And also, look, how on earth are the government going to police this? You know, we have all these ridiculous taxes, you know, a bit like VAT on private schools, which raises about, you know, £5.50 in total when you take out the cost of administering these taxes. You know, if this mansion tax, as is feared, is not just an increase in council tax on an annual basis, but potentially what Rachel Reeves is talking about is charging people a capital gains tax on their primary home based on the difference between what they sell it for and what they bought it for. Who is going to administer the maths behind that? Who is going to go out and value all of these homes? I mean, this is an enormous admin task that's going to cost the taxpayer millions and millions of pounds, which surely negates the very point of increasing the tax in the first place. One might argue that perhaps this is just the politics of envy. This is, you know, literally just the green-eyed monster of sixth form politics, a la Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer, and has very, very little to do with raising money and more to playing to the left wing of the Labour Party.
Yeah, Russell Quirk, we used to hide behind our sofas from Doctor Who. Now I think we're going to hide behind our sofas from the Chancellor. Thank you very much, Russell Quirk. Always an absolute pleasure. Now, the Treasury has told GB News this.